scoot that back just a bit. Hey. I'm feeling so awkward right now. I wouldn't say that like I'm tired. I don't feel mentally tired, but my body is pretty tired right now. I decided to take a slow flow class after I finished my classes for the day, and my body is just like so very tired. And I know that I really should have eaten like a ton of food when I got home, but I have been craving steak with chimichurri since like I was on the way to work. 4 o'clock. I've been craving steak with chimichurri sauce, and I thought I would luck out because over by my gym there's a ton of like cutie poo like boutique restaurants, and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna Google this, and one of these places should have something. Like I would even go for like flank steak with chimichurri tacos, but none nearby. All of the places that had what I wanted were downtown. And I mean, honestly, who has time to marinate steak? You're getting home at 8:45. I have barbecue salmon that I should have already eaten. I have not had a craving this strong for a food in years. I think when I was pregnant with my daughter was probably the last time I was craving something so bad. Like everything else sounds absolutely disgusting. Like I really feel like it's going to be hard for me to sleep tonight because of how much I want marinated flank steak, chimichurri sauce, salted fingerling potatoes, maybe some like grilled, like bright vegetables, some simply grilled like bright vegetables, asparagus, red and orange bell pepper, just a little bit of lime. This is really difficult for me right now. It's a struggle. Food is a struggle. And it's like, man, like this hit so hard, and I should have just ordered some so it would have showed up at my job before I got off, before everywhere closed, like fucking DoorDashed it or something, but then it would just be so old. I was really hoping there would be a place nearby. There's literally like a ton of like cute, like there is, I guess you would call it like high-end ice cream store that's like a 2-minute walk away, and you can get a $10 fucking fig and olive oil ice cream until like 11 o'clock at night. Their waffle cones are so bad. cream's good. The waffle cones are really, really, really bad. They even have a waffle cone scented candle that straight up smells like cardboard. It was so funny. I didn't want to smell it when I went in. And there was this couple of ladies that was behind me the last time I went in. And they picked up the waffle cone candle. They were like, ooh, waffle cone. Like, let's smell it. And they smelled it. And they were like, put it down. They said, that doesn't smell like waffle cone. So, of course, I had to pick it up and smell it. And it did not smell like waffle cone. It smelled like the opposite of waffle cone. But, I mean, their waffle cones don't really taste that good there. So it makes sense that the candle wouldn't smell good. But I guess once I'm done with this live, I'll choke down my barbecue salmon and sweet potatoes and sauteed mushrooms begrudgingly. And then maybe tomorrow I'll take myself out for what I really want. Anyways, so we're starting part 2 of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind tonight. I'm still kind of in my existential K-hole, and I've just been telling myself I'm just going to kind of do what I want for the rest of this week. I took a nice big nap today before I had to go to work. I changed up all of my playlists and workouts right before I went in, because the idea of listening to some of the music that I had scheduled was just not fun. Am I turning into I feel so bratty right now. I have no idea what it is. I'm just I don't like this. I have no idea where this is coming from. I'm so bratty right now. Oh my God. Just really. I have never been that person. And it's something just switched inside of me, and now I'm just I don't like it. I've always been the person that bends over backwards and puts up with everything. No, I'm I want to stick with chimichurri sauce or nothing. I'll just starve. What the hell is wrong with me? I'm finding that so funny right now. And so, if anyone who sees this wants to send me steak with chimichurri sauce, please do so. I will be forever grateful, and I'll say, thank you. In any case, we're starting part 2. I love this picture on the back of this book. Oh. I just realized something. I feel like that's a me realization, not an everyone realization. So I'll just go ahead and save that for myself. So part 2. Right attitude. The point we emphasize is strong confidence in our original nature. Single-minded way. Even if the sun were to rise from the west, the Bodhisattva has only one way. The purpose of my talk is not to give you some intellectual understanding, but just to express my appreciation of our Zen practice. To be able to sit with you in Zazen is very, very unusual. Of course, whatever we do is unusual because our life itself is so unusual. Buddha said, to appreciate your human life is as rare as soil on your fingernail. You know, dirt hardly ever sticks on your nail. Our human life is rare and wonderful. When I sit, I want to remain sitting forever. But I encourage myself to have another practice. For instance, to recite the sutra or to bow. And when I bow, I think, this is wonderful. But I have to change my practice again to recite the sutra. So the purpose of my talk is to express my appreciation. That is all. Our way is not to sit to acquire something. It is to express our true nature. That is our practice. If you want to express yourself, your true nature, there should be some natural and appropriate way of expression. Even swaying right and left as you sit down or get up from Zazen is an expression of yourself. It is not preparation for practice or relaxation after practice. It is part of the practice. So we should not do it as if we were preparing for something else. This should be true in your everyday life. To cook or to fix some food is not preparation, according to Dogen. It is practice. To cook is not just to prepare food for someone or yourself. It is to express your sincerity. So when you cook, you should express yourself in your activity in the kitchen. You should allow yourself plenty of time. You should work on it with nothing in your mind and without expecting anything. You should just cook. That is also an expression of our sincerity, a part of our practice. It is necessary to sit in Zazen in this way, but sitting is not our only way. Whatever you do, it should be in a... It's got a little chill there. Good ghost. JK. Whatever you do, it should be an expression of the same deep activity. We should appreciate what we are doing. There is no preparation for something else. The Bodhisattva's way is called the single-minded way, or one railway track thousands of miles long. The railway track is always the same. If it were to become wider or narrower, it would be disastrous. Wherever you go, the railway track is always the same. That is the Bodhisattva's way. So even if the sun were to rise from the west, the Bodhisattva has only one way. His way is in each moment to express his nature and his sincerity. We say railway track, but actually there is no such thing. Sincerity itself is the railway track. The sights we see from the train will change, but we are always running on the same track, and there is no beginning or end to the track. Beginningless and endless track. There is no starting point, no goal, nothing to attain. Just to run on the track is our way. This is the nature of our Zen practice. But when you become curious about the railway track, danger is there. You should not see the railway track. If you look at the track, you will become dizzy. Just appreciate the sights you see from the train. That is our way. There is no need for the passengers to be curious about the track. Someone will take care of it. Buddha will take care of it. But sometimes we try to explain the railway track because we become curious if something is always the same. We wonder, how is it possible for the Bodhisattva always to be the same? What is his secret? But there is no secret. Everyone has the same nature as the railway track. There were two good friends, Chokai and Hofuku. They were talking about the Bodhisattva's way, and Chokai said, even if the Arhat, an enlightened one, were to have evil desires, still the Tathagata, Buddha, does not have two kinds of words. I say that the Tathagata has words, but no dualistic words. Hofuku said, even though you say so, your comment is not perfect. Chokai asked, what is your understanding of the Tathagata's words? Hofuku said, we have had enough discussion, so let's have a cup of tea. Hofuku did not give his friend an answer because it is impossible to give a verbal interpretation of our way. Nevertheless, as a part of their practice, these two good friends discussed the Bodhisattva's way, even though they did not expect to find a new interpretation. So Hofuku answered, our discussion is over. Let's have a cup of tea. That is a very good answer, isn't it? It is the same for my talk. When my talk is over, your listening is over. There is no need to remember what I say. There is no need to understand what I say. You understand. You have full understanding within yourself. There is no problem. Repetition. If you lose the spirit of repetition, your practice will become quite difficult. The Indian thought and practice encountered by Buddha was based on an idea of human beings as a combination of spiritual and physical elements. They thought that the physical side of man bound the spiritual side. And so their religious practice was aimed at making the physical element weaker in order to free and strengthen the spirit. Thus, the practice Buddha found in India emphasized asceticism. But Buddha found when he practiced asceticism that there was no limit to the attempt to purge ourselves physically, and that it made religious practice very idealistic. This kind of war with our body can only end when we die. But according to this Indian thought, we will return in another life and another life to repeat the struggle over and over again without ever attaining perfect enlightenment. And even if you think you can make your physical strength weak enough to free your spiritual power, it will only work as long as you continue your ascetic practice. If you resume your everyday life, you will have to strengthen your body, but then you will have to weaken it again to regain your spiritual power. And then you will have to repeat this process over and over again. This may be too great a simplification of the Indian practice encountered by Buddha, and we may laugh at it. But actually, some people continue this practice even today, sometimes without realizing it. This idea of asceticism is in the back of their minds, but practicing this way will not result in any progress. So funny, I actually believe exactly the opposite. I believe that in strengthening the body, you're able to tap in more to your physical power. By strengthening the body, being aligned, being able to, a word that's coming to mind is transmute pain or suffering, but I don't think that that's the word that I want to use. I feel like when you strengthen the body, you directly strengthen the mind. You're better at doing hard things. You're better at concentration, focus, and you also experience that zone, when you're in the zone, if you've ever done yoga or played competitive sports or anything that takes extreme focus, even art, building model airplanes, whatever, you get in this kind of musicians, you get in this flow state. And in that flow state, I feel like we directly touch God. And when you kind of remove all of that suffering, I feel like it's easier to attain that flow state, easier to work past the waves that we have in our mind in order to attain spiritual enlightenment. It's like the Stoics and philosophers in ancient times, they weren't just, weak little pencil necks that were constantly weakening their body. They were fighters, wrestlers. They liked to challenge themselves and their bodies, whether it was holding their breath for long periods of time or participating in extreme feats of strength. And through that physical hardening, I guess, of the body, physical exertion, they were able to more clearly process information and clear their mind to not only be able to receive those downloads or messages from God, but also be able to look at things from different perspectives. I find that so interesting. I mean, academics are great, but and I love smart people. I like being around them, and talking to them, but I feel like physical exertion allows you to tap into that God energy a lot easier. In any case, let's continue on. Buddha's way was quite different. At first, he studied the Hindu practice of his time and area, and he practiced asceticism. But Buddha was not interested in the elements comprising human beings, nor in metaphysical theories of existence. He was more concerned about how he himself existed in this moment. That was his point. Bread is made from flour. How flour becomes bread when put in the oven was, for Buddha, the most important thing. How we become enlightened was his main interest. The enlightened person is some perfect, desirable character for himself and for others. Buddha wanted to find out how many human beings develop this ideal character, how various sages in the past became sages. In order to find out how dough became perfect bread, he made it over and over again until he became quite successful. That was his practice. But we may find it not so interesting to cook the same thing over and over again every day. It is rather tedious, you may say. If you lose the spirit of repetition, it will become quite difficult. But it will not be difficult if you are full of strength and vitality. Anyway, we cannot keep still. We have to do something. So if you do something, you should be very observant and careful and alert. Our way is to put the dough in the oven and watch it carefully. Once you know how the dough becomes bread, you will understand enlightenment. So how this physical body becomes a sage is our main interest. We are not so concerned about what flour is, or what dough is, or what sage is. A sage is a sage. Metaphysical explanations of human nature are not the point. So the kind of practice we stress thus cannot become too idealistic. If an artist becomes too idealistic, he will commit suicide, because between his ideal and his actual ability, there is a great gap. Because there is no bridge long enough to go across the gap, he will begin to despair. That is the usual spiritual way. But our spiritual way is not so idealistic. In some sense, we should be idealistic. At least we should be interested in making bread which tastes and looks good. Actual practice is repeating over and over again until you find out how to become bread. There is no secret in our way. Just to practice Zazen and put ourselves into the oven is our way. Using a tarot card or an oracle card as a bookmark. It's so pretty. I gotta cover up the tetas to show you. I pulled that card this morning. I was on the way out, and it's so funny. I actually wrote exactly that, in the world, not of the world, in this, I'll call it a poem, in this poem I wrote recently. So, it's so interesting, as I understand that this is a metaphor just to practice Zazen and put ourselves into the oven is our way. But as someone who makes bread, literally makes bread went to school to learn how to make bread better and has made a lot of different bread in my day. It's so strange because when you think about the process of making bread, it is intricate. There are specific ratios in order to make the best bread and make a tighter crumb or a looser crumb, or make a bread have holes or not have holes. Make a bread with a crispy exterior versus one with a softer exterior, dough conditioners, salt, all of that fits in. But how to become bread. I feel like this might be a metaphor simply just for transformation, patience, analyzation, and of course practice that was mentioned several times here. Experimentation. And then put yourself in the oven. And wait. And trust that that bread is going to turn out exactly the way that it needs to. Oh, allow yourself to develop fully. Allow yourself to develop fully. Have patience with yourself. Understand that you, or that loaf of bread, is much greater than the sum of its individual parts. Oh, I like that. I like the way that feels. That feels nice as far as the analogy for bread. That feels really good. So, Zen and excitement. Zen is not some kind of excitement, but concentration on our usual everyday routine. My master died when I was 31. Although I wanted to devote myself just to Zen practice at Aiheiji Monastery, I had to succeed my master at his temple. I became quite busy, and being so young, I had many difficulties. These difficulties gave me some experience, but it meant nothing compared with true, calm, serene way of life. It is necessary for us to keep the constant way. Zen is not some kind of excitement, but concentration on our usual everyday routine. If you become too busy and too excited, your mind becomes rough and ragged. This is not good. If possible, Try to be always calm and joyful, and keep yourself from excitement. Usually we become busier and busier day by day, year by year, especially in our modern world. If we revisit old familiar places after a long time, we are astonished by the changes. It cannot be helped. But if we become interested in some excitement or in our own change, we will become completely involved in our busy life and we will be lost. But if your mind is calm and constant, you can keep yourself away from the noisy world even though you are in the midst of it. In the midst of noise and change, your mind will be quiet and stable. Zen is not something to get excited about. Some people start to practice Zen just out of curiosity, and they only make themselves busier. If your practice makes you worse, it is ridiculous. I think that if you try to do Zazen once a week, that will make you busy enough. Excuse me. Do not be too interested in Zen. When young people get excited about Zen, they often give up schooling and go to some mountain or forest in order to sit. That kind of interest is not true interest. Just continue in your calm, ordinary practice, and your character will be built up. If your mind is always busy, there will be no time to build, and you will not be successful, particularly if you work too hard on it. Building character is like making bread. You have to mix it little by little, step by step, and moderate temperature is needed. You know yourself quite well, and you know how much temperature you need. You know exactly what you need. But if you get too excited, you will forget how much temperature is good for you, and you will lose your own way. This is very dangerous. I really love that paragraph. I like hearing that. This reminds me of burnout. Being overworked or being a workaholic and kind of coming apart at the seams after so long. No one can sustain that forever, and if you do, you're gonna work yourself into like cancer or something. Staying moderate and practicing composure and restraint in order not to overdose on busyness. That's very nice. Buddha said the same thing about the good ox driver. The driver knows how much load the ox can carry, and he keeps the ox from being overloaded. You know your way and your state of mind. Do not carry too much. Buddha also said that building character is like building a dam. You should be very careful in making the bank. If you try and do it all at once, water will leak from it. Make the bank carefully, and you will end up with a fine dam for the reservoir. Our unexciting way of practice may appear to be very negative. This is not so. It is a wise and effective way to work on ourselves. It is just very plain. I find this point very difficult for people, especially young people, to understand. On the other hand, it may seem as if I am speaking about gradual attainment. This is not so either. In fact, this is the sudden way, because when your practice is calm and ordinary, everyday life in itself is enlightenment. So I feel like that touches a little bit on the passage from yesterday. Once you attain enlightenment, it is not so special, but before you have it, it actually is special. When you keep your practice calm and ordinary. And in my opinion, it does seem like he's talking exactly about gradual attainment. But I suppose the idea of working towards something, striving toward the attainment of enlightenment, is one of those not to do things. So it's simply making meditation a part of your life without getting into that state of obsession. Right effort. If your practice is good, you may become proud of it. What you do is good, but something more is added to it. Pride is extra. Right effort is to get rid of something extra. The most important point in our practice is to have right or perfect effort. Right effort directed in the right direction is necessary. If your effort is headed in the wrong direction, especially if you are not aware of this, it is diluted effort. Our effort in our practice should be directed from achievement to non-achievement. Usually when you do something, you want to achieve something. You attach to some result. From achievement to non-achievement means to be rid of the unnecessary and bad results of effort. If you do something in the spirit of non-achievement, there is a good quality in it. So just to do something without any particular effort is enough. When you make some special effort to achieve something, some excessive quality, some extra element is involved in it. You should get rid of excessive things. If your practice is good, without being aware of it, you will become proud of your practice. That pride is extra. What you do is good, but something more is added to it. So you should get rid of that something, which is extra. This point is very, very important, but usually we are not subtle enough to realize it, and we go in the wrong direction. Got to think a little bit more on that passage there. I suppose that again goes back to episode 1, I believe, the beginning of this book, speaking about attainment. Something just popped into my head regarding that. It's the same with manifestation. If you practice manifestation in your spirituality, essentially, you put out into the universe what you want, but you can't grasp onto it. If you try and grasp onto it, it's like trying to grab water with your fist and everything flows out of your fist and you open it up and you end up having nothing. When you allow yourself to match the vibration of what it is, say you want to have a successful business or a really long ponytail. You have to match the vibration. You have to find the confidence. Take pride in your hair. Take pride in your business. Or, work toward, with single-minded effort, that goal without grasping too hard and obsessing over it. I think this is starting to make sense, but it's one of those moments where the wheels are still turning and I haven't come to a full conclusion here. Because all of us are doing the same thing, making the same mistake, we do not realize it. So without realizing it, we are making many mistakes, and we create problems among us. This kind of bad effort is called being dharma-ridden or practice-ridden. You are involved in some idea of practice or attainment and you cannot get out of it. When you are involved in some dualistic idea, it means your practice is not pure. By purity, we do not mean to polish something, trying to make some impure thing pure. By purity, we just mean things as they are. When something is added, that is impure. When something becomes dualistic, that is not pure. If you think you will get something from practicing Zazen, already you are involved in impure practice. It is all right to say there is practice and there is enlightenment, but we should not be caught by the statement. You should not be tainted by it. When you practice Zazen, just practice Zazen. If enlightenment comes, it just comes. We should not attach to the attainment. The true quality of Zazen is always there, even if you are not aware of it. So forget all about what you think you may have gained from it. Just do it. The quality of Zazen will express itself. Then you will have it. People ask what it means to practice Zazen with no gaining idea. What kind of effort is necessary for that kind of practice? The answer is effort to get rid of something extra from our practice. If some extra idea comes, you should try to stop it. You should remain in pure practice. That is the point towards which our effort is directed. We say, to hear the sound of one hand clapping. Usually the sound of clapping is made with two hands, and we think that clapping with one hand makes no sound at all, but actually one hand is sound. Even if you do not hear it, there is a sound. If you clap with two hands, you can hear the sound. But if sound did not already exist before you clapped, you could not make the sound. Before you make it, there is sound. Because there is sound, you can make it and you can hear it. Sound is everywhere. If you just practice it, there is sound. Do not try to listen to it. If you do not listen to it, the sound is all over. Because you try to hear it, sometimes there is sound and sometimes there is no sound. Do you understand? I fully do not think I understand, and I've bookmarked this segment so that I can come back to this later. This is one of those things that my little human brain cannot figure out. So let's continue. Even though you do not do anything, you have the quality of Zazen always. But if you try to find it, if you try to see the quality, you have no quality. You are living in this world as one individual, but before you take the form of a human being, you are already there, always there. We are always here. Do you understand? You think before you were born, you were not here. But how is it possible for you to appear in this world when there is no you? Because you are already there, you can appear in the world. Also, it is not possible for something to vanish which does not exist. Because something is there, something can vanish. You may think that when you die, you disappear, You no longer exist. But even though you vanish, something which is existent cannot be non-existent. That is the magic. We ourselves cannot put any magic spells on this world. The world is its own magic. If we are looking at something, it can vanish from our sight. But if we do not try to see it, that something cannot vanish. Because you are watching it, it can disappear. But if no one is watching, how is it possible for anything to disappear? If someone is watching you, you can escape from him. But if no one is watching, you cannot escape from yourself. So this again is a very difficult paragraph for me to wrap my head around here. This is reminiscent about the concept of energy not being able to be destroyed. Or even if we want to take this to a paranormal perspective, how, even when people do leave this earth, their essence, their spirit, their memories even continue to live on. So even though they are gone, they are also still here, which is pretty deep. This is an intense segment here, so I'll definitely have to go back later. So try not to see something in particular. Try not to achieve anything special. You already have everything in your own pure quality. If you understand this ultimate fact, there is no fear. There may be some difficulty, of course, but there is no fear. If people have difficulty without being aware of the difficulty, that is true difficulty. They may appear very confident. They may think they are making a big effort in the right direction, but without knowing it, what they do comes out of fear. Something may vanish for them, but if your effort is in the right direction, then there is no fear of losing anything, even if it is in the wrong direction. If you are aware of that, you will not be deluded. There is nothing to lose. There is only the constant pure quality of right practice. Let's see how long this next segment is here. Oh, perfect. Next segment is called No Trace. The lead-in. When you do something, you should burn yourself completely, like a good bonfire, leaving no trace of yourself. When we practice Zazen, our mind is calm and quite simple. But usually our mind is very busy and complicated, and it is difficult to be concentrated on what we are doing. This is because before we act, we think, and this thinking leaves some trace. Our activity is shadowed by some preconceived idea. The thinking not only leaves some trace or shadow, but also gives us many other notions about other activities and things. These traces and notions make our minds very complicated. When we do something with a quite simple, clear mind, we have no notion or shadows, and our activity is strong and straightforward. But when we do something with a complicated mind, in relation to other things or people or society, our activity becomes very complex. Most people have a double or triple notion in one activity. There is a saying, to catch two birds with one stone. That is what people usually try to do. Because they want to catch too many birds, They find it difficult to be concentrated on one activity, and they may end up not catching any birds at all. That kind of thinking always leaves its shadow on their activity. The shadow is not actually the thinking itself. Of course, it is often necessary to think or prepare before we act, but right thinking does not leave any shadow. Thinking which leaves traces comes out of your relative confused mind. Relative mind is the mind which sets itself in relation to other things, thus limiting itself. It is this small mind which creates gaining ideas and leaves traces of itself. If you leave a trace of your thinking on your activity, you will be attached to the trace. For instance, you may say, "This is what I have done," but actually it is not so. In your recollection, you may say, "I did such and such thing in some certain way." But actually, that is never exactly what happened. When you think in this way, you limit the actual experience of what you have done. So if you attach to the idea of what you have done, you are involved in selfish idea. My battery notification there. Oopsie. So I think I'm going to finish up this segment and then one after before my phone gets ready to die here. But this is good. I think this is coming together and finally starting to make sense after that quite complicated chapter. In spirituality, there's the concept of efforting and rumination from a psychological standpoint. So I think I know where this is going. And it's starting to make a little more sense. If you have any ideas, definitely throw those out because this is a very confusing segment here, for me anyway. Often we think that what we have done is good, but it may not actually be so. When we become old, we are often very proud of what we have done. When others listen to someone proudly telling something which he has done, they will feel funny because they know his recollection is one-sided. They know that what he has told them is not exactly what he did. Moreover, if he is proud of what he did, that pride will create some problems for him. Repeating his recollections in this way, his personality will be twisted more and more until he becomes quite a disagreeable, stubborn fellow. This is an example of leaving a trace of one's thinking. We should not forget what we did, but it should be without an extra trace. To leave a trace is not the same as to remember something. It is necessary to remember what we have done, but we should not become attached to what we have done in some special sense. What we call attachment is just these traces of our thoughts and activity. In order not to leave any traces, when you do something, you should do it with your whole body and mind. You should be concentrated on what you do. You should do it completely, like a good bonfire. You should not be a smoky fire. You should burn yourself completely. If you do not burn yourself completely, a trace of yourself will be left in what you do. You will have something remaining, which is not completely burned out. Zen activity is activity which is completely burned out, with nothing remaining but ashes. This is the goal of our practice. That is what Dogen meant when he said, ashes do not come back to firewood. Ash is ash. Ash should be completely ash. The firewood should be firewood. When this kind of activity takes place, one activity covers everything. So our practice is not a matter of 1 hour or 2 hours or 1 day or 1 year. If you practice Zazen with your whole body and mind, even for a moment, that is Zazen. So moment after moment, you should devote yourself to your practice. You should not have any remains after you do something. But this does not mean to forget all about it. If you understand this point, all the dualistic thinking and all the problems of life will vanish. When you practice Zen, you become one with Zen. There is no you and no Zazen. When you bow, there is no Buddha and no you. One complete bowing takes place. That is all. This is nirvana. When Buddha transmitted our practice to Mahakashyapa, he just picked up a flower with a smile. Only Mahakashyapa understood what he meant. No one else understood. We do not know if this is a historical event or not, but it means something. It is a demonstration of our traditional way. Some activity which covers everything is true activity. And the secret of this activity is transmitted from Buddha to us. This is Zen practice, not some teaching taught by Buddha or some rules of life set up by him. The teaching or the rules should be changed according to the place or according to the people who observe them, but the secret of this practice cannot be changed. It is always true. So for us, there is no other way to live in this world. I think this is quite true, and this is easy to accept, easy to understand, and easy to practice. If you compare the kind of life based on this practice with what is happening in this world or in human society, you will find out just how valuable the truth Buddha left us is. It is quite simple, and practice is quite simple. But even so, we should not ignore it. Its great value must be discovered. Usually, when it is so simple, we say, "Oh, I know that. It is quite simple. Everyone knows that." But if we do not find its value, it means nothing. It is the same as not knowing. The more you understand culture, the more you will understand how true and necessary this teaching is. Instead of only criticizing your culture, you should devote your mind and body to practicing this simple way. Then society and culture will grow out of you. It may be all right for the people who are too attached to their culture to be critical. Their critical attitude means they are coming back to the simple truth left by Buddha. But our approach is just to be concentrated on a simple, basic practice and a simple, basic understanding of life. There should be no traces in our activity. We should not attach to some fancy ideas or to some beautiful things. We should not seek for something good. The truth is always near at hand, within your reach. So it's quite interesting. I feel like a very simplistic way of kind of looking at that is to be the change or be the good that you would like to see in your society and other people. Which is 100% true. Keeping an idea or keeping an eye on your sphere of influence, it's like a domino effect. When you really kind of shine your light and that bright energy and are present in who you are and what you are doing, it intrigues others, and you're able to spread that joy and that light and that love in a very effortless way by simply being present and being yourself. It's how I kind of take that there, which is probably oversimplifying the statement, but it's definitely good, right? So this last segment is small here. This is nice. It's entitled God Giving. To give is non-attachment. That is, just not to attach to anything is to give. Every existence in nature, every existence in the human world, every cultural work that we create is something which was given or is being given to us, relatively speaking. But as everything is originally one, we are, in actuality, giving out everything. Moment after moment, we are creating something, and this is the joy of our life. But this I, which is creating and always giving out something, is not the small I. It is the big I. Even though you do not realize the oneness of this big I with everything, when you give something, you feel good, because at the time you feel at one with what you are giving. This is why it feels better to give than to take. We have a saying, Dana Prajna Paramita. Dana means to give. Prajna is wisdom, and Paramita means to cross over or to reach the other shore. Our life can be seen as a crossing of a river. The goal of our life's effort is to reach the other shore, nirvana. Prajna Paramita is the true wisdom of life. That in each step of the way, the other shore is actually reached. To reach the other shore with each step of the crossing is the way of true living. Dana Prajna Paramita is the first of the 6 true ways of living. The second is Sila Prajna Paramita, or the Buddhist precepts. Then there are Kshanti Prajna Paramita, or endurance, Virya Prajna Paramita, or ardor and constant effort, Dhyana Prajna Paramita, or Zen practice, and Prajna Paramita, or wisdom. Actually, these 6 Prajna Paramita are one, but as we can observe life from various sides, we count 6. Dogen Zenji said, to give is non-attachment. That is just not to attach to anything, is to give. It does not matter what is given. To give a penny or a piece of leaf is Dana Prajna Paramita. To give one line or even one word of teaching is dana prajna paramita. If given in the spirit of non-attachment, the material offering and the teaching offering have the same value. With the right spirit, all that we do, all that we create is dana prajna paramita. So Dogen said, to produce something, to participate in human activity is also dana prajna paramita. To provide a ferry boat for people or to make a bridge for people is dana prajna paramita. Actually, to give one line of the teaching may be to make a ferry boat for someone. According to Christianity, every existence in nature is something which was created for or given to us by God. That is the perfect idea of giving. But if you think that God created man and that you are somehow separate from God, you are liable to think that you have the ability to create something separate, something not given by Him. For instance, we create airplanes and highways, and when we repeat, I create, I create, I create, soon we forget who is actually the I, which creates the various things. We soon forget about God. This is the danger of human culture. Actually, to create with the big I is to give. We cannot create and own what we create for ourselves, since everything was created by God. This point should not be forgotten. But because we do forget who is doing the creating and the reason for the creation, we become attached to the material or exchange value. This has no value in comparison to the absolute value of something as God's creation. Even though something has no material or relative value to any small I, it has absolute value in itself. Not to be attached to something is to be aware of its absolute value. Everything you do should be based on such an awareness, and not on material or self-centered ideas of value. Then whatever you do is true giving. It is dana prajna paramita. I really love that. I really love that. As someone who considers themselves, creative of sorts, every single amazing idea or creation feels like it does come directly from God. There's that efforting forward, but there are some days when I literally have to sit down and move my schedule around in order to write, because I just feel the energy of this thing that wants to be created flowing through. I absolutely love that paragraph. When we sit in the cross-legged posture, we resume our fundamental activity of creation. There are perhaps 3 kinds of creation. The first is to be aware of ourselves after we finish Zazen. When we sit, we are nothing. We do not even realize what we are. We just sit. But when we stand up, we are there. That is the first step in creation. When you are there, everything else is there. Everything is created all at once. When we emerge from nothing, when everything emerges from nothing, we see it all as a fresh new creation. This is non-attachment. The second kind of creation is when you act or produce, or prepare something like food or tea. The third kind is to create something within yourself, such as education or culture or art or some system for our society. So there are 3 kinds of creation. But if you forget the first, the most important one, the other 2 will be like children who have lost their parents. Their creation will mean nothing. So let me just move back to look at that first law of creation here, that first kind of creation, to make sure I'm cementing this. The first is to be aware of ourselves after we finish Zazen. When we sit, we are nothing. We do not even realize what we are. We just sit. So the first type of creation is that eternal presence in the moment, I suppose, and connection to ourselves, the God inside of us, and the universe around us. If that's coming through, check my battery here. If that's coming through correctly. Usually everyone forgets about Zazen. Everyone forgets about God. They work very hard at the second and third kinds of creation, but God does not help the activity. How is it possible for him to help when he does not realize who he is? That is why we have so many problems in this world. When we forget the fundamental source of our creating, we are like children who do not know what to do when they lose their parents. If you understand Dana Prajna Paramita, you will understand how it is we create so many problems for ourselves. Of course, to live is to create problems. If we did not appear in this world, our parents would have no difficulty. Let me read the rest of the sentence before I show you the fun stuff. Our parents would have no difficulty with us. So, random page here. It's completely blank in the middle of a sentence with a little fly. Just by appearing, we create problems for them. This is all right. Everything creates some problems. But usually people think that when they die, everything is over and the problems disappear. But your death may create problems too. Actually, our problems should be solved or dissolved in this life. But if we are aware that what we do or what we create is really the gift of the big I, then we will not be attached to it, and we will not create problems for ourselves or others. And we should forget day by day what we have done. This is true non-attachment, and we should do something new. To do something new, of course, we must know our past, and this is all right. But we should not keep holding on to anything we have done. We should only reflect on it, and we must have some idea of what we should do in the future. But the future is the future. The past is the past. Now we should work on something new. This is our attitude and how we should live in the world. This is Dana Prajna Paramita, to give something or to create something for ourselves. So to do something through and through is to resume our true activity of creation. This is why we sit. If we do not forget this point, everything will be carried on beautifully. But once we forget this point, the world will be filled with confusion. Whew. So that was a pretty, for me, a pretty heavy and at times complicated reading to start part 2 here. Definitely going to need to read through this again on bus ride tomorrow to see if I can get more understanding here. And it looks like my battery is kind of getting toward the end. I'm getting ready to get another battery warning here. So, it's episode 3. We'll call this a close on episode 3 of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind by Shunryu Suzuki. And I really, really enjoyed this portion, regardless of how confusing it was. Tomorrow night, we will be starting a segment entitled Mistakes in Practice. The lead-in here is, it is when your practice is rather greedy that you become discouraged with it. So you should be grateful that you have a sign or warning signal to show you the weak point in your practice. Whew. So that's probably going to be a pretty big one. I struggle a lot with control. So having that kind of greedy feeling or feeling of attainment in my meditation practice is something, and even my yoga practice is something that I'm really working through right now. So that should definitely be a goodie there. So thank you so much for joining me for this bedtime story. If you have any insights, comments, or questions, definitely let me know. I'm watching my battery just kind of tick down here. Definitely let me know. Shout me out with a DM or make a comment. I'll be posting this as well with the parts 1 and 2 on my page here. And highly recommend picking this book up if you're starting your meditation journey. Thanks so much for joining me tonight, y'all, and have a blessed rest of your evening.